Hello, I'm Rabbi Michael Holzman from the Northern Virginia Hebrew congregation. We have been longtime friends of Floris United Methodist Church, and I am honored to contribute some thinking to your learning journey. One of the core concepts of Judaism is the idea of being the chosen people. We thank God with the words, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim, that you have chosen us from all the peoples, every Friday night when we say blessings over wine, every time we read from the Torah scroll, the 5 books of Moses, and at the end of every worship service. But the term can be confusing. In our modern American context, we often confuse chosenness with selectiveness. We think of being chosen like making the travel team in sports, or being admitted to an elite college, or getting selected for a promotion. Some people hear the term chosen people and then accuse Judaism of having this kind of elitism baked into the religion. Nothing could be farther from the truth. There is nothing elite or selective about being the chosen people. When God calls to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12, God says to Abraham, "You shall be a blessing." This is not a promise. Rather, it's a command. From that beginning, the relationship with God comes with this huge sense of obligation. Later in the Torah, in the book of Exodus, when God calls out to Moses, again, we hear the sense of burden in the call. He doesn't feel chosen. He feels burdened, as he repeatedly begs God to find somebody else for the job. And even later, when the entire nation of Israel stands at the foot of Mount Sinai, supposedly being chosen, they're terrified. They ask Moses to go and return with the 10 Commandments. The idea of receiving revelation directly from God is just too overwhelming. One of my favorite Jewish legends, this is not in the Torah, is that the obligations of being chosen are so much that the people could only hear the first letter of the 10 Commandments, which in Hebrew is an aleph, a silent letter. Later Jewish tradition expands on the idea. In the year 70, the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans. This was a terrible period of Jewish history, as the entire system of ancient Israelite religion depended upon the temple. Different groups of Jews tried to continue the essential teachings of tradition in new ways. One group had a wise teacher that performed miracles, and they believed even rose from the dead after crucifixion. This group developed into Christianity, as you know. But a different group of Jews focused on interpreting the Torah, writing volumes and volumes of interpretations and commentaries, throwing around different ideas trying to explain God's word. The leaders of this group eventually earned the title Rabbi, and what they created is called Rabbinic Judaism. The Judaism I practice and lead today came from them. One of the core stories the rabbis told about Mount Sinai, the moment of chosenness, said that all Jews of all time were standing at Sinai together. Even people who might one day convert to Judaism were standing at Sinai. A quick aside. In the Orthodox Jewish world, there happens to be a dating app you can download called Saw You at Sinai, seemingly indicating that people who fall in love were destined to be together from the beginning of time. That's how important the legend is. Rabbis have speculated for years about that moment of Sinai, and one major explanation is that God offered the Torah to all of the different peoples of the world in turn, and they all said no, because the burden of moral behavior in the document was just too great. And so they speculate, the rabbis, God changed tactics. In Exodus chapter 19, verse 17, the Hebrew says, Vayit yatzvu b'tachtit hahar. And they went out and they were tachtit, the mountain. The word tachtit could be translated into English as at the foot of. So they stood at the foot of the mountain. But more commonly, tachtit means underneath. So the rabbis say, God lifted the mountain over their heads and said, take this Torah, or the mountain will fall upon you. It sounds like a scary idea, I know, but think about it. It's realistic. Our culture today acts like the freedom to choose is a form of power. The person who can choose is lucky. To be chosen is to be rewarded. And that whole mentality elevates human beings to become masters of the universe. Ultimately, though, all those choices can be exhausting and disorienting. All of that power to choose can get a person so self-absorbed, even to become cynical or narcissistic. In contrast, Jews see chosenness as dependence on God. and connection to the moment at Mount Sinai. We quote Proverbs 3:18 every time we return the Torah to the ark. We call it a tree of life, and we take it literally. When God chose us, God gave us a framework for thinking, a set of guardrails on a winding mountain road, a set of obligations of what priorities can come first, second, third, and so on. And because we have this, we live, we survive. In that way, chosenness is a blessing. But the blessing comes not from being some kind of rewarded people. Rather, we receive the blessing in how we serve others, in how we fulfill our duty to community, and how we elevate God's presence in the world. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your discussion.